Welcome back. All right, so I'm gonna need need bigger boards throughout this training camp because yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of discussions taking place, and let's go ahead and jump in with some news from around camp today, starting with the Montreal Canadiens. Montreal, you have your physicals before training camp. There are a few guys who failed, notably Hoffman. So it's not really a surprise that Byron failed it. It's not really a surprise entirely that Price failed it. The expectation is still that Carey Price should be 100% fine once we get to the regular season. There's no expectation of him missing any time. But Hoffman, there is. There is some chance that he misses the start of the season. They, of course, are counting on Hoffman to supply some goals from players that have left the team. So we'll see what happens with Hoffman and how that turns out. And one thing that you got to watch at camp is when there's a guy who's hurt, there's a guy who's out, who jumps into that role? Who takes advantage of that spot? Who is it that steps up and says, I'm going to make that my own? And so this is where, as professional sports can be fascinating to watch because those opportunities present themselves and sometimes it works out really well for somebody that you don't expect. Looking at Yoel Armia and thinking, maybe Yoel Armia ends up having a pretty good year. Matt Murray. This is an interesting one out of Ottawa. Apparently was told to bulk up over the summer. And so he's been doing that. He's been 178 pounds according to listings of what he weighs at. And right now he's at 190. So he's packed on 12 pounds. We've seen this with goalies before. You pack on that muscle mass as long as it doesn't affect his agility. So they're looking to likely change his game a bit. If it works, he'll have a huge bounce back season, potentially anyways. And with the amount of money they've got invested in Matt Murray, it makes a lot of sense that they would try to manage him over the summer to try to get him into that bounce back season and beyond, right? So we'll see how things go for him in Ottawa. Vlad Tarasenko was talked to at camp, and he's basically said, conversations between Doug Armstrong and myself are going to remain private. I'm not talking about it. And I'm here to work. I'm here to play. I'm here. I'm going to play. And so we'll see how things go for Tarasenko. But everything seems to be pointing towards Tarasenko being a member of the Blues to at least start the season. And we'll see how things go from there. But if this relationship is fixed, great. If it's not, we'll find out pretty early on in the season. But Tarasenko doing what he needs to do. He's being paid $7.5 million. He's going to show up and play and be a professional about it. This is what he's saying. We'll see how things go for him this year. He's also a player looking for a bounce-back season. Interesting storyline out of Columbus is taking shape. And keep in mind the 2021 draft class wasn't seen as a draft class that had a lot of NHL-ready guys, if there were any. There was a discussion about whether or not this draft class might have none. There were a lot of scouting reports that said this draft class sucks, kind of thing. Like, it was just, there really wasn't any sugarcoating it for some of these scouts looking at the draft class. However, Cole Sillinger picked up in the draft at 12th overall by the Columbus Blue Jackets. They have him with Laine and Voracek to start camp, which means that how he did in the Prospects tournament, which I didn't cover the Prospects tournaments from the weekend because there's a lot of them. They're not really televised very much. Preseason, we're going to see a lot of games that aren't televised as well. Don't be entirely shocked when a game's not televised anywhere. But Cole Sillinger, the team was clearly impressed with how he did at the Prospects tournament, and they're giving him every chance to make the team, and he's saying, yeah, I want to make the team, which any rookie would. I mean, it'd be great to see a guy come to camp and go, I don't want to make the team. This is a terrible year. But this is one of those things that could really be good for Columbus if they can find that rookie that can come in and get off to a hot start and prove that their scouting department is able to overcome the huge losses. And I go through it in the video that just went live on the channel. I actually recorded it hours before it went live. But in the playoff history video on Columbus, I talk about all the losses and how that can be an opportunity. That could be an opportunity for somebody else. So we'll see how it goes. News out of Dallas, Alex Radulov is healthy. He barely played last year, and when he did, he just did not seem to be himself. Tyler Seguin close to 100%. I get the feeling with Sagan that maybe that's as good as it's going to get. Maybe close to 100% is the most you can ask for with him. And so if Sagan's good to go, and if Radulov's fine, Ben Bishop's still hurt, so Bishop's probably out for a while. But that's why they went out and got Holtby. Although they have Ottinger, so it'll be Ottinger, Hudobin, and Holtby, and you got to think Ottinger probably goes to the AHL. But yeah, so Sagan says he's close to 100%, and here's fingers crossed, hoping that is in fact the case, because Dallas is being picked by a lot of people to have a bounce back year, including myself, and yet on some level I'm wondering whether or not that's going to happen. Interesting news as well. This is being reported on the ESPN site. I didn't see any report on this on the NHL sites, or the NHL related coverage for TSN and Sportsnet. But apparently, Board of Governors, there's going to be some discussion of what rule are they enforcing this year. And again, they have this. There was the 1 year that we just had all these face-off violations being called, and we're like, seriously? Face-off violation? Come on. There are things that are an actual problem in the league. Face-off violations are ridiculous. So this year, cross-checking is what the league's looking at. And so they asked around the league, and there were some players going, what? Really? How's that going to work? So, I mean, and I've talked about it. How ridiculous it is that it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the announcers will go, well, yeah, they let them get away with the first 3 cross-checks, but that 4th. There's no other penalty in hockey like that. Just imagine, well, he high-sticked the guy a 3rd time. They have to call the 3rd high-stick. Well, yeah, he tripped him twice. They don't call the first trip, but they call the 2nd one. Well, that was goalie interference on the first goal, but they let that one slide. But the goalie interference on the 2nd goal. But no, cross-checks, you do it all you want. And they don't call it until like the 4th or 5th. Or well, that one was a little harder than the other ones. Again, well, he barely tripped him. I mean, that's not a penalty. So the league's planning on cracking down on it. Look for a lot of complaining throughout the season regarding how much it's being called. And I'm saying it right now, I'll be prophetic. I have no doubt this was going to happen. It's going to be inconsistent from one referee to the next. Last year, there were games where you could tell who was refereeing because nothing's getting called or everything's getting called. And it was jarring to watch one game and then watch another and see just how different that was. And it feels worse, I think, because we do get a chance to see every single game now. Whereas in years past, you may not have been able to see every game, but now we do. So the league's planning on cracking down on cross-checking. How long does it take before the league says, forget it? My biggest problem with crackdowns has been that they'll have like a crackdown on hooking and holding. And this used to happen in the late 90s. Okay, we're cracking down on hooking and holding. So they'd crack down on it in October. By the 1st of November, what crackdown? So they have to stick to it, right? Good news for Seattle. They haven't taken the ice yet, but and of course me wearing the white jersey now, which is absolutely stunning. They've sold more they sold more merchandise on launch day, the first day that their jerseys and all that everything was available, than Vegas did in their first 2 months. Seattle has been a huge boost to sales. I will say this: I think that it's great. I will also say that the first year of the Buffaslug, it was the #1 selling jersey in the NHL. So there will be some who say, well, whatever, it's just because it's new. But really, the fact that it's outsold Vegas so far, and I kind of get it. I kind of understand. There were some definite naysayers to Vegas before they committed the league. There were a lot of naysayers. I know there's a lot of naysayers with Seattle too, but it feels different. So yeah, they're definitely making money off the merchandise. It looks like a good investment right now. And in a few weeks, they'll be playing games wearing this jersey, and we'll see how things go for them. Of course, there's the preseason as well that's coming up. I'm looking forward to watching preseason game between Seattle and Vancouver. And so, yeah, we'll see how that goes. Ilya Mikheyev. Yes, Mikheyev, who, of course, in the comments below this, it'll just say Mikheyev. He is saying he did not request a trade. So he is denying the reports that he requested a trade at the end of the season. And he's apparently happy in Toronto, doesn't want to go anywhere. I don't have any reason to say that he's lying. And that's the thing with some of these reports. And that's why I don't really get into the trade speculation. I stay out of it as much as possible, because we will hear these reports. And in the Mikheyev case, it came from a reputable source. But again, if it's not directly from the player, it can be, yeah, things can get kind of dicey. So Mikheyev's saying, I didn't request a trade. So he's still a Leaf, and apparently he's happy to be a Leaf. Spets as well today saying that he doesn't want to forget last season. He wants them to learn from it. Again, it's all of this discussion. And isn't training camp wonderful? Because every team's undefeated. Right now, whatever team you're rooting for, they haven't lost a game in months. And right now, playing against themselves, they look great. So, except some Canuck fans are concerned because OEL was on his hands and knees sucking wind at the end of a bag skate for the Canucks. But they're not in their peak physical condition at the start of training camp usually. So, it's not on the board, but I mentioned it here, so we'll see what happens. The New York Rangers will be wearing a number 7 patch in honor of Rod Gilbert this season. He, of course, passed away during the offseason, so nice gesture by the New York Rangers to do that. And out of Winnipeg, apparently Nate Schmidt and Brendan Dillon very impressive already at training camp. And this is that thing, right? Training camp, everything's perfect. Every team's undefeated. So Dillon, not necessarily surprised. I'm very happy that Nate Schmidt's started off with a good camp. He had a very rough time as a Canuck, and it was basically right out of the gate. So having a good camp, getting his confidence up, and hopefully having a good preseason. Nate Schmidt's a good defenseman. It just did not work out in Vancouver. So hopefully it works out well for him in Winnipeg. And yeah, so there you go. A whole board full of stuff. And I had to go through. There was a lot of other stuff too. There's a lot of really positive feelings out there from basically every team in the league. And again, they're undefeated. They're playing against themselves and little scrimmages and things. And everything is just so positive at this time of year. And then once we get into about a week after the season started, there's a little negativity starts creeping in. And then by week 3 or 4, we're into full-on panic index mode for certain teams. But and I know there's certain fan bases that are going to say, well, we're not all that positive, being probably Arizona about this year in Buffalo. But in Arizona's case, lots of draft picks. I will say I had to laugh too. There was a comment, I'm pretty sure I read this, where Phil Kessel's talking about how he might welcome a trade out of Arizona. And the comment is, well, Arizona could definitely definitely could handle some more draft picks. And I thought, don't they have the entire 2022 draft to themselves already? Like, they have so many if they trade Kessel for picks, from who? Where? They already have all the draft picks next year. So, yeah, we'll see if that takes place. Also, not on the board, but Shane Wright is far and away the #1 prospect in next year's draft. I will do a video on him soon, but I don't expect that to change. Shane Wright is seen as a remarkable player, a fantastic talent. And so for a team like Arizona or like Buffalo, they're likely already looking at Shane Wright and saying, this is the guy that we think can lead us next year and beyond. But we'll see how that all works out. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happen upon this video. And yeah, this is nice. Of course, the unboxing video is already on the channel. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.